Hello, welcome to the From the Bars to the Bricks Prison Ministries Incorporated. I'm Kev, your favorite felon. Today we are going to talk about I'm in prison, I'm a dad. Now what? How can I be a dad from prison? Can I be a dad from prison? We're going to talk about that today. So as you guys know, if you guys don't know, I've done a little over 20 years in prison. My longest bit was 13 years. And that was from December 2004 until December of 2017. So in that time, at the beginning, I wasn't trying to change. I wasn't trying to do nothing. But I started changing and stuff by 40 and 35 maybe. But started making a difference and changing and writing programs and teaching stuff. One of the programs I taught in prison, it was written by another inmate, Tony Hunt. It's called Fatherhood, and me and Ormond Wimberly and Tony sat down. We kind of updated that class a few times, but Tony has all the credit for that class. He's still incarcerated in Ellsworth in Kansas prisons. But he wrote some very good programs. Fatherhood is one of them. It's one I used to teach. I struggled with being a dad in prison. When I was arrested, my two biological children were 6 and 8. And it was kind of like devastating. You know, I was so wrapped up in drugs and all that my life started taking a negative twist and turn. But at the same time, I was that unusual tweaker where my family was still important to me. I made it a point to still spend time with my kids and stuff. And so while my actions didn't show how important my kids were to me, obviously the drugs and stuff overtook. But they were important. And I'll tell you, I first got in that class, and like, one of the first things they tell you, it's like, say you love your kids and you do anything for them, well, you can drop that argument right now because you're in prison. You might be something to do anything for them now. But the main thing you need to do for them was stay out of trouble and be there in their lives, and we failed at that. But it's not about the failures, it's about how we get up. Is life over? Are we done? Do we not have a relationship with our kids? Can we not be good dads from inside prison? No, that's not true. One of the biggest things is communication. They don't have you right here every day. If you're able to call home every day, that's awesome. Not everybody has that kind of money, but if you're able to call home every day and talk to your kids, even if it's 5 or 6 minutes, that's going to make a big difference in your in your relationship. Stay involved in their lives. If they're old enough to write them. If they don't write back, so what? Write them. Let them know what you got going on. Ask them what's going on with their life and this and that. Get to know your kids. Well, that's from the outside or the inside. These are basic principles. You know, these all apply. But especially inside prison, they're paramount to any type of a relationship with your children. It's hard because you are completely away from them. And I didn't have the money to call every day, and we didn't always have email. We didn't get email into the Kansas prisons until like 2010, I want to say. So it was around 2009, 2010. It was right on time me and Eric moved out of the dorm. But it was a little bit before that. But anyway, the communication it's hard. But it's your responsibility. You're the dad. Or if you know someone's a dad in prison, you can paraphrase this out. If you want, I've got some stuff, some written stuff. If people want, I can send to or something, get it scanned in or something, send to you guys to send into your loved ones in the prison system or whatever. But if they're in the Kansas prison system, if they're in El Dorado, tell them to go find out about the Fatherhood program. Go to the activities, talk to Alan Jameson or one of the activities staff, talk to them. Wallace Dixon, the president of the JCs, go ask him. Ron Perano, the vice president over individual development of the JCs there, go ask him. Ron Perano, Wally D, those are inmates, by the way. JC is an inmate-run program for you guys that don't know. I'm going to do a video on that too. But, so, what do you know about your kid? How well do you even know your kid? How well do you know your kid when you went to jail? Do you know what their favorite color is? Do you know what their favorite song is? Do you know what their least favorite color is? Their least favorite song? What's their favorite food? What foods don't they like? What foods do they kind of like? What are they into? Do you know? I tell you what, I was in prison. I so much wanted to be a part of my kids' lives, and I so much wanted to know what they were involved in. My daughter was, well, I'm in Hutch. It's like 06, so my daughter's like 8. Her thing, Harley's deal at that time was Hannah Montana. Hannah Montana, Hannah Montana, Hannah Montana. Not quite my thing, but I watched some Hannah Montana just to see what my kid was watching. Talk about getting some strange looks in prison. I'm in a dorm behind the walls in Hutch, laying in my bunk, watching Hannah Montana. People didn't know me, like, what the hell? But people that knew me tell him shut the hell up. His daughter's into that, so he's watching to see what his daughter's into. And when I went to visitation, me and Harley got to talk about something that was, we both watched. We watched it together, even though we was in separate spots. Same thing with Joshua and my other kids. Whatever they were into, I tried to learn about. Josh was into Lil Wayne. Well, everything I heard about Lil Wayne, I wasn't impressed with. I tried to do as much research as I could from prison. Then I found out all the stuff, good stuff he done with Katrina, the skate parks and stuff to help youth and all that. So I was letting my son know, hey, this guy is doing this. He raps about this, but this is really what it is. But if he rapped about this, it wouldn't sell records. But, you know, I wanted him to know that that was not a realistic world. And even if Lil Wayne was a part of that world and the active gangsta lifestyle and all that, it's not for my child. I don't want my child in that lifestyle. But anyway, it's all about communication and time. Love is spelled T-I-M-E. It's that simple. You don't have to be rich to be just extremely wealthy. Money isn't where it's at. I mean, we can buy our kids stuff all day long and spoil them all day long. That's fine. That's that momentary happiness. But is it that going to matter in a year or two? I'll tell you a story. My daughter, Harley, I'm talking to her on the phone. She was like 15. She just turned 15, getting ready to turn 15. And I'm out on the yard in El Dorado. I'm talking to her. It's right before Christmas. And, you know, she turned 15 in January. It's right before Christmas that time. It just stands out. We're sitting there talking. And she said, sorry, it's kind of hard. She said, Daddy, I started crying today. She said, Mama, Grandma bought some. She asked what I wanted for Christmas, and I told her a big Mr. Goodbar. And she asked why. I told her that me and you used to sit and watch TV and eat Mr. Goodbars. And out of the bag, the little minis. And so my mom had bought her a bag of the minis, like immediately after she had said this. She'd went to the store and brought her back some Mr. Goodbars. But Harley was like, she was in tears. That was her most, that's what she talked about. remember, she was 6 when I went to prison. This is 9 years later almost. And this is what this child remembers. Keep in mind, I was that unusual tweaker. I spent time with my kids. I sold things I wasn't supposed to. People would trade toys and electronics and stuff for this stuff. Plus, I had the money, so my kids were spoiled. I thought that's what was important. All the time, I'm still spending time with them, but I'm buying them all this stuff, all these things they want. If they wanted it, they'd, oh, Daddy, I want that. They had it. You know, it was ridiculous. But that's not what they remember. Neither one, none of the kids. That's Joshua's favorite memory is going to the lake and camping and stuff like that. He was 8 when I went to prison. I come out of prison in 2017, and I had a good relationship with my kids. But I didn't pay attention to a lot of the stuff we taught, and I made some mistakes. And part of my daughter is I don't really approve of stuff that goes on in her home. I don't like the way her husband treats her and the kids. It's abusive. It's not physically abusive or anything like that, but he's just real possessed, treats my daughter like a possession. And I don't like that. So I chose to separate myself from that situation because that situation is going to send me back to prison. I'm going to end up hurting this dude. I can't sit back and watch my daughter, and be controlled and talked bad to and all that. I'm not going to do it. And, if she don't choose to get out of that situation, I can't make her. She has to know I'm her dad. I'll always be here. I love her. I support her in anything she does, whether it be I'm in her day-to-day life or not. But anyway, I didn't follow these principles. One of the things we teach, communicate, and that's why I say get to know your kids. Get to know them. And I did these when I was teaching these classes. I talked to my kids. But you know what? Things change, especially kids as they grow up. Their favorites and least favorites and ideas and goals and dreams change. They evolve. They grow. I didn't grow with them. I got out. My adopted son consumed a lot of my time. Ty's just high maintenance. But it's a two-way street, too. My other kids didn't make an attempt, really, to be involved. Joshua was in the same house as me and Ty. Both boys lived with me, and they, I made myself available. So, it wasn't a complete 360, but still, I'm the dad. I should take my part, even though they're grown. But from prison, you have a plethora of challenges. For one, hopefully you got a good baby mama. That helps a lot. Because they need to realize the importance of the communication with the dad. They need to realize that no matter how mad they are, because dad's in prison, husband, boyfriend, whatever, ex-husband, whatever the case is, they can't bash the dad in front of the kids. Don't. That's horrible. Moms, dads, anybody, do not bash the other parents in front of the kids. Don't bring the kids into that stuff. But, so it helps. If you have a supportive baby mama, whatever the relationship is with you, that helps a lot. For, like I said, phone calls. Phone calls are important. Visits. I know a lot of people, I hear this all the time, I don't want my kid to see me like this in prison. The movie Con Air. Nicolas Cage, the character plays, like, I didn't want to see my daughter in prison. I didn't want her to see me like this. She's 6 years old. I'm getting out of prison. I'm going to meet her for the first time. Negative, Ghost Rider. I want to see my kids. For one, albeit I wasn't proud of being in prison. At the same time, I don't believe in lying to my kids or lying to get. For one, I want them to see what it's like and see how miserable it is, because I didn't want them there. I did not want any of my kids in the system. Unfortunately, I don't always get what I want. But I didn't want my kids in the system, so I wanted them to see firsthand. And the Kansas systems aren't that bad. There was some concern. One of my nephews has really bad Asperger's, and they were concerned about coming into prison visitation because my ex-sister-in-law, all she saw was what's on TV. Understandable. I wouldn't send a kid into that environment in some of those movies and stuff, but nonetheless, it was safe for James to come visit me. So, but I wanted him to see that. Because, like I said, I didn't want him in that position. I don't want none of my kids in prison. This is going to be a multi-part, but this is like the basics. So, communication is the biggest key. I can't emphasize enough. Communication, 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 communication. And if you learn that core principle with your kids and carry that on to your everyday life, I tell you what, communication makes a big difference. It will save you a lot of headaches, a lot of problems. If you communicate with those around you, if you're on any type of supervision in the system, whatever, communication with your unit teams, communication with your probation makes a difference. A lot of times, you have those out there that I had a parole officer like that in Wichita that was just out to get me. And no matter what I did, she was going to try to get me. But that's not always the case. A lot of times they want to help you. And as long as you communicate, I've had multiple parole officers, and that was the only one I've ever had that was just like horrible, that really lived up to the stories. The guy's like, oh, they were just after me. And I thought it was crap all those years. But, nonetheless, it is what it is. Get to know your kids. When you have them times that visit, spend time playing games, just talking. Ask your kid about their week, their day, how they're going. Be open for your kids. Don't be so rushed to judgment and discipline and stuff, especially. Now, here's the thing. Here's where the tricky part is. There is a fine line when you're incarcerated. You see your kids, even if you visit your kids every weekend, you're seeing them for a couple hours in a visitation room. For the whole week. It's not even like dad getting them for the weekend. This is like a couple hours. So, in that couple hours, make that few hours about them. And I understand there's adults bringing them stuff too. You want to spend time with the adult as well. But make sure to make a lot of it about that kid, because that relationship with that child and how you maintain that relationship with that child has a lot to do with their future. Statistically, a kid with an incarcerated parent is almost screwed anyway. 7 out of 10 kids with an incarcerated father will end up incarcerated themselves. 7 out of 10. That's 70%. 85% will end up with a life of hard drugs and stuff and crime because of the lack of the father in the parent. In the house, the lack of the father in the parent. Whatever, you know what I mean. But then you got the 35% commit suicide. It's just terrible, horrifying statistics. But as you being a dad inside prison, you can do that. And like I said, it's hard because you don't want to be that strict disciplinarian when you only see them a couple hours. You kind of, I've never been the real yell and scream and stuff approach anyway. I'm more of the talk to the kid. Hey, what's going on? Why are we doing this? What can we do to change it? You know, it's all right. You messed up. Here's the mistake. Now let's find the solution. We know you know what we did. You know what you did wrong. Let's find the solution. Let's make it right. So, but anyway, core values, core family values, promoting the family system. You know, promoting unity with the baby mama. That helps a lot. Unfortunately, I had to raise my kids literally from prison a lot of times. I would get emails, or I would just happen to call home, and I would have to talk to my kids because my ex couldn't control them. Or I called one night when I was in U-Dorm in El Dorado. You could use the phones all night, some nights on weekends. And I called home like 1 o'clock in the morning, and my 13-year-old son wasn't home. My ex didn't know where he was at. Oh, live in a small town. It's okay. They lived in Mulvane. Mulvane's not big, but it's not small. And it don't matter how small it is. I live in a town of 100 people. I'll be darned if a 13-year-old that's under my care is going to be out just roaming the streets and I don't know what they're doing at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's not happening. But anyway, so you run into those difficulties. But we're going to get into more about being a dad in prison. And like I said, these principles apply even out in the streets. Being a father is the hardest job you'll ever do. It's harder than being a CEO of several multi-billion-dollar corporations. It don't come with an instruction manual. There is no owner's course. There is no workbook. You know, you can find a bunch of literature out there and a million different ways on how to discipline a kid, how to raise a kid, this and that. But I'm going to tell you, a lot of them come back to these core principles, and every child is different. This video isn't going to work for every kid. This class is more broad range, but yet there's still stuff in here that may not work for every kid. It may not work for every situation. Every situation is a dad and their relationship with their kid. But it's going to work for most because these are the core principles. Anyway, it's the hardest job. Sometimes it seems like a thankless job. Sometimes we just want a man just the heck with it. But we can't. I'm telling you, it's also the most gratifying job. When that kid comes in and they see you and their world lights up, their face just brightens and smiles, and they come run out, give you a hug, they love you or whatever, that just makes your day. So, make sure and be a relevant part of your kids' lives so that you're that guy that the kids come running for, that brightens their day. Kids are going to find a male role model if they don't have one in the house. Be careful. Watch what role models they catch. And make sure the parents at home are intervening, because that's where, I done stuff that my parents didn't raise me like that at all. And the influences. I can't blame everything on influence. I make my own decisions, but yet it was those influences. But and I had a dad in the home, so that's with a dad in the home, and my dad was a cop. But that's beside the point. Now my parents were divorced, but that's, my dad was a cop, and I had a really good relationship with my dad. But anyway, you guys, let's be better dads. Let's be better uncles, grandparents. Dad up. And I don't mean dad up just for your own kids. Dad up. You're a mentor for somebody. Somebody looks up to you and idolizes you and is watching what you're doing. Some kid in your life, whether you know it or not. So what example are you going to set? If you're already in prison, you've already set a negative. What can you make out of that negative? Show them what you can do and change because you got something to prove. You prove you can be an idiot. Now you got to prove you can change and be a good family man and a law-abiding citizen. And so, you know, that's the, and I apologize for Lita in the background. She's kind of psycho this morning. She's the psychiatric support service dog, and I think she needs some psychiatric help with herself this morning. But, guys, have a wonderful and a blessed New Year's. I hope you got something out of this video today. I didn't take my notes, so I know I'm a little bit all over the place. But I don't like with my notes, and when I write stuff down so I can stay on track, I feel like I'm not paying attention to you guys. I'm looking elsewhere because I'm reading my notes off the computer or something, and I like it to be from the heart, and I want to get out there what it is I'm trying to convey and for people hopefully to absorb. Let's make this world a better place. Be that change you want to see in the world. Gandhi, not me, stolen from Gandhi. I can't take credit, but hey, I like it. It's one of my favorite quotes. Keep your head up. Let's be a better dad. Dad up. Love everybody. Until next time, I'm Kev, and I'm out. Oh, please like and subscribe.